It's 6:47 a.m. and your phone buzzes before your alarm does. You already know what it is. You've been doing this long enough to feel the weight of a message before you read it. You pick up the phone. It's Marcus, the regional director. The Henderson account is pulling out. Meeting moved to 8 a.m. Fix it. That's all. No context. No acknowledgement that it's barely dawn, or that you're the one who built the Henderson account from a cold email 2 years ago when nobody else believed it would go anywhere. You put the phone down. You breathe once. Then you get up. This is not the first time. It will not be the last. And somewhere inside that quiet you carry into every morning, you already know exactly what you're going to do. You've worked at Delvane and Cross for 4 years. Your title is Senior Operations Coordinator. It sounds like someone who books meeting rooms and orders printer paper. That's exactly what they think you do. You let them think that. The reality is something else entirely. You are the reason the Henderson account didn't collapse 18 months ago when their CFO quit mid-quarter and took 3 key contacts with him. You rebuilt those relationships over 6 weeks of silent, methodical outreach that no one ever saw. You are the reason the Q3 rollout didn't fail publicly, because you caught a $340,000 discrepancy in the vendor contracts at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday and corrected it before the morning presentation. You are the reason Marcus still has his job, though he has never once considered that possibility. They see a quiet person, someone who takes notes, speaks only when spoken to, never fights for credit. They have no idea what that stillness costs, or what it contains. By 7:15 a.m., you are at your desk. The office is empty except for the cleaning crew. You pull up the Henderson file and read 3 months of communication in 20 minutes. The problem is visible immediately. It isn't the contract terms. It isn't the pricing. It's a relationship issue buried in an email chain nobody bothered to read past the subject line. Henderson's VP of Strategy, Carla Voss, sent a message 6 weeks ago expressing concern about the implementation timeline. Careful language, not angry, worried. And the only response she received was a forwarded PDF. She felt dismissed. That's the entire problem. You call Carla Voss at 7:22 a.m. She answers on the second ring, which tells you she's already at her desk, already anxious. You don't open with an apology. Apologies perform guilt. You open with her name and a direct reference to the concern she raised. You tell her you want to walk through a revised timeline before the 8 a.m. call. Her voice shifts within 30 seconds. The tightness leaves it. By 7:41 a.m., she says, I think this is workable. You say you'll make sure Marcus has the updated framework before the call. She says, thank you. I appreciate you reaching out directly. You hang up. You update the framework. You send it to Marcus with 2 sentences so he doesn't have to read anything he won't understand anyway. At 8:03 a.m., the Henderson account is retained. Marcus sends you 1 word. Good. You save it. Not because it means anything, because someday it might. Here is what you've learned about power in a place like this. It does not live in titles. It does not live in the offices with glass walls or parking spots with names on them. It lives in information, in relationships. In the quiet accumulation of knowing things nobody else took the time to know, and doing things nobody else wanted to do, until the machinery of this place runs through you, whether anyone acknowledges it or not. You didn't plan this exactly. You came here 4 years ago to do good work and move up in the conventional way. But in the first 6 months, you watched something that changed your understanding of how organizations actually function. A man named Derek Holloway, loud, confident, politically skilled, was given a VP title and a team of 12 and a budget of $2 million. He ran the entire operation on the labor of 3 people beneath him who he barely knew by name. Then he gave a presentation to the executive board that received a standing ovation for work those 3 people had done at night on weekends, without recognition or additional pay. Derek got a bonus. Derek got a profile in the company newsletter. The 3 people smiled during the applause. You understood something in that moment you have never forgotten. They were not invisible because they lacked ability. They were invisible because they had accepted invisibility as a condition of employment. They had agreed, without realizing they were agreeing, to disappear. You decided something different. You would not disappear. But you would not make yourself visible the way Derek was visible either. You would make yourself indispensable, quietly, structurally, until removing you from the equation would cause the whole thing to stop working. The first year is just learning. You learn who actually makes decisions versus who appears to. You learn which clients need emotional management and which just need response time. You learn that the woman at the front desk, Nora, has been here longer than anyone in senior leadership and knows where every body is buried. You bring her coffee twice a week, and you actually listen when she talks. By year 2, Diana Cho, head of sales, finds you in the break room on a Wednesday afternoon. She sits down across from you and says quietly, "I heard you pulled the Henderson thing together before the call." You say the account needed attention. She looks at you in a way that feels like recalibration. Then she says, "I have a situation I could use a second set of eyes on." You say, "Send it over." The situation is a client called Mercer Tate that has been threatening to downscale for 3 quarters. You read the file that evening. Same pattern as Henderson. A concern raised and not genuinely addressed, compounded until it became structural mistrust. You write a clean, precise, 3-part recommendation with specific action steps, owners, and timelines. Diana calls you the next morning. She says, "This is exactly right. How did you see this?" You say, "I read the emails." She pauses. Then she laughs. She says, "You'd be surprised how rare that is." Mercer Tate renews at a higher tier 4 weeks later. Diana doesn't credit you publicly, but she starts sending you the problems she can't take to her team. The situations that require discretion. You handle them the same way every time. Quietly, efficiently, without drama. You are building something. You're not yet sure what to call it. Raymond Park is the first real test. You find a discrepancy in the annual vendor audit by accident. A software licensing agreement renewed automatically for 3 consecutive years for a platform that companies stopped using. Total cost $218,000. The renewal authorization signatures lead back through 2 layers of delegation to Raymond's office. He is the CFO. You sit with this for 3 days. Then you request a 15-minute meeting. You frame it as a routine vendor review question. You go to his office on a Thursday, close the door, and put the document on his desk. You say you found it during a procurement review and wanted to bring it to him before including it in the audit summary. You watch his face. This is the moment. He looks at the document for a long time. Then he says, "This was a vendor management oversight. I'll have it addressed." You ask whether he wants it flagged in the audit as resolved or handled separately. He looks up at you. Something passes between you in that silence. He says, "Separately. I'll send you the authorization." The authorization arrives that afternoon, backdated, which is a choice he made that you did not ask him to make. You file it carefully. You do not touch it again. Raymond Park now returns your emails within the hour. Every time. You don't feel good about it, exactly. That's the thing no one tells you about accumulating this kind of leverage. It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like weight. You carry it the way you carry everything, quietly, without visible strain. But you feel it. At night, sometimes you ask yourself who you are becoming, and whether you recognize that person. The answer shifts depending on the night. By year 3, people come to you directly, not through Marcus, not through any official channel. A project manager named Joel asks at 6 p.m. on a Friday if you can help him restructure a deliverable. A junior analyst named Priya brings you a presentation she's been asked to give to the executive team and says she's not confident. You rebuild it in 2 hours. When she delivers it on Tuesday, she receives the best feedback of her career. She sends you a message afterward that says only, "I don't know how to thank you." You tell her to pay attention and keep notes. The things she learns in that room are worth more than anything else they'll teach her here. Marcus notices something has shifted before he understands what it is. He calls you in and says your name has been coming up in conversations, and he wants to make sure you're aligned with the team vision. You listen. You ask 2 questions that demonstrate you've been more aligned with the team vision than he has, for considerably longer. He shifts in his chair. He says you should be bringing things to him first. You say, of course, you'll make sure of that going forward. You both know this conversation accomplished nothing except confirming you are no longer something he can manage by ignoring. What Marcus doesn't understand is that by the time someone in his position starts paying attention, the thing they're trying to observe has already finished happening. The call from corporate comes on a Tuesday in February, not to Marcus, to you, directly. A woman named Sandra Ellison, Group Operations Lead for the parent company. She says she's been analyzing performance data across regional offices, and your office has the highest client retention rate and the lowest escalation rate in the network, by a significant margin, for 7 consecutive quarters. She wants to understand how you say it's a relationship-first model. Early intervention on client concerns before they become structural. Systems designed to surface problems quickly so they can be resolved at the lowest level of complexity. She says, who designed those systems? You say they evolved over time. She says, That's not what I'm hearing. Then she says, I'd like you to come to headquarters next month, not as a visitor, as a presenter. After you hang up, you sit without moving for a long time. You think about the morning 4 years ago when you arrived at this office holding a coffee from the cart outside because you didn't yet know where the kitchen was, wearing a blazer slightly too formal for the culture, carrying the alertness of someone who has decided to pay attention to everything. You think about Carla Voss saying, I appreciate you reaching out directly, about the look on Raymond's face when he saw that document, about Priya walking into the executive room with a presentation she hadn't believed in 48 hours earlier, about Diana, who still sends you the problems she can't take anywhere else. You think about Marcus, in his office down the hall, who has no idea this call just happened. You do not yet know what that headquarters meeting becomes, whether it opens something real or whether this system, like all systems, finds a way to absorb you without changing anything fundamental. You know how places like this work. You know that power structures do not yield without resistance, and that the moment you become fully visible, forces will move to contain that visibility. Marcus will find out about the call, probably within the week. Raymond Park will hear your name in a context that makes him nervous. Diana will understand immediately what is happening and will be the most honest person in the room about it. And you will walk into that building next month and stand in front of people who have the power to change the shape of your life. And you will decide in that moment how much of what you know you're willing to show. You have spent 4 years being underestimated. The question is no longer whether they see you. The question is what you do now that they do. Your phone buzzes again. It is 6:52 a.m., Marcus. Can we talk this morning? Before the stand-up, but place the phone face down on the desk. You finish your coffee. You think, and then, slowly, with the stillness of someone who has been preparing for this moment for 4 years, without ever quite admitting it, you pick up the phone. You type, sure, 7:30. You put it down. Outside, the city is fully awake. The light is flat gray, the kind that doesn't promise anything. It simply makes things visible. You stand up. The office is waiting.